The New York Knicks took another early season frustrating L to the Houston Rockets. Tough team, played tough, but there were a lot of things the Knicks could have done better. We're getting into it right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome into Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And we want to remind you that your favorite team now has, or your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking insights sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit the auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode, even after a tough loss. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at strict.land. And he's Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And Gavin, this was probably not a game that we're going to spend the most time talking about unless we get really worked up over it, because it was just annoying. I don't know. I did not enjoy watching this game. It felt like the Knicks just could never get their footing in this one. I always hate if one of the first things that I talk about is officiating, but it seemed like there was a weird flow. Like I felt like nothing could be established one way or the other. Like it was like on one possession, Jalen Brunson would get just mugged and like thrown to the floor basically. And then the next possession, someone on either side would like breathe on someone and they would call a foul. And it just felt really weird. I feel like that's sort of what part of what led the Knicks to having a weird game in this one, is that they couldn't figure out, like, do we have to finesse this one? Do we have to just bludgeon everybody? Like, what's the flow going to be here? That said, there's no excuse for like just straight up playing poorly, and they did do that. I feel like their shot selection was really off. I feel like Tibbs's rotations were basically, I don't know, he basically made this like technically 8 people played, but it was more like a 7-man rotation, and if he had his way, more like a 6-man rotation, which I don't think helped matters because you were facing a deep team on the other side that's young and hungry, and you can't really, I think, extend yourself that far against a team like that. But yeah, I don't know. Where do you want to start on this one? Because I thought it was not a great game for the Knicks on the overall here.
Yeah, it's a great question, because I was planning on like touching on like everything I thought that was wrong and then be like, Alex, which of those matters? So maybe I'm going to try to do that right back to you, because I don't really know the answer of which one was the worst. I know on social media the biggest complaint is Jalen Brunson and how he executed down the stretch of this game. I was covering Sun Sixers last night, so I didn't get to watch live. And then when I actually watched it live, I was like, like there were definitely a couple of plays from Jalen that I would want back. But I thought he also made a couple of great plays down the stretch of this game. And I think, unfortunately for the Knicks, I don't think their issues are that simple. And I don't want to overreact, because I think I overreact. I feel like I overreacted. Definitely, I made the title kind of and the thumbnail kind of grandiose after the Cavs game. And then I felt really good after the Heat and Pistons game. And like there was some stuff like Cat just going volcanic that were like somewhat sustainable, but maybe not totally sustainable, and stuff like playing the Pistons that weren't totally sustainable. And now the Knicks play another really good team. The Rockets came in 11th in offense, 11th in defense. They are, to your point, they are young. They are hyper athletic, especially when they prioritize keeping Amen Thompson and Tari Eason on the floor. They are a load to deal with because they are physical, they are flexible, they are a really tough team to play for a group right now that only has one guy who's really confident in creating shots for himself and others. And I'll say 1.5 because OG Anunoby was great shooting the ball in this game in Jalen Brunson. I think that's ultimately the single thing that stands out the most. Is this is the third time this year the Knicks have played like a physical, versatile, primarily switch heavy defense, and it has totally neutered their offense, right? Like the Knicks have been like very, very reliant on creating an advantage out of that initial screen and roll. We saw it against the Pistons where the Knicks like literally, I think, like shot the equivalent of like 87% from 2-point range when they immediately shot out of a Jalen Brunson pick and roll. And that was because the Pistons weren't switching, and the Knicks created an advantage every single time they went to screen and roll. This game, they found that a bit by screening with Josh Hart because Alperen Şengün was guarding him, and that was the one guy on the floor you could attack. But even that was sort of a mixed bag, and I think too much down the stretch. The Knicks got into mismatch hunting. It was the same thing that happened against the Cavs. It happened a little bit against the Celtics. And if Jalen Brunson doesn't have a Superman cape on a particular night, like that mismatch hunting is not going to work. And you get another game where Cat only shoots 2 threes, where Mikal Bridges, I thought, was essentially MIA after the first quarter. And if Cat is not creating offense, if Mikal is not creating offense down the stretch, I think with a Tom Thibodeau coach team, and that's just to say like one that isn't like explicitly like extremely offensively creative, you're going to struggle against good defenses because Jalen Brunson is incredible. He's not prime LeBron James. He cannot do everything every game against great teams. He was kind of asked to do that tonight, and it didn't work out, and the Knicks lost to a good team.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we're going to see, as the Knicks keep facing different types of teams, like there's going to be a lot of, especially through these first like 20 games or so, which we know is Tibbs's barometer. There's going to be a lot, I think, of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And this felt like a 1 step back kind of game where the Knicks over the last 2 games had done such a good job, I think, of getting everybody involved. And granted, you could talk about quality of opponent, like the Heat were, they're scrappy, but I don't think they're as good this year as they have been in the past. Like it certainly didn't look that way in that game. And then, the Pistons are just bad. I mean, it could be easy for someone that doesn't really pay attention to be like, wait, weren't the Rockets like kind of bad too? But the Rockets have improved a lot under Udoka. Like they look really good. They have a good defensive identity. And we saw that in this game, to your point. Like I think the Knicks need to work on what's going to happen when teams just decide to switch all the time. And when you're facing a team that has, a bunch of, to your point, like mega athletic guys that are all good defenders. Like I thought that Amin Thompson really did a good job on Jalen Brunson in this game. Like I thought that the Knicks should have been, when that matchup occurred, should have been like, hey, let's get Brunson shooting more threes now. Like, let's keep him on the perimeter because him getting inside against Amin Thompson is just not going to end well. He's so long. He's so athletic. Like, it's the exact sort of guy that if he's keyed in, can neutralize Brunson. And a couple possessions down the stretch, like, that is what happened. Like, Brunson tried to drive on him, and, Thompson wasn't fouling because he's a great defender and has been a great defender from the second he stepped on an NBA floor. And, he just played good defense on Brunson, and they didn't really seem to have another plan other than like try to draw a foul or just try to make a layup or whatever. But also with Cat too, like to your point too, they didn't get him involved a lot in designed actions. And like, to his credit, let me shout him out real quick, like 19 rebounds, 9 offensive boards in this game. So like there were moments where I was like, damn, he looks tough in this game. Like he looks uncoverable on the glass right now, which is great. And kudos to him for being able to like kind of find the way to do that and outmuscle his opponent without fouling, because he was in foul trouble for a good portion of this game. But I thought that he looked really good in that respect. And that's where a lot of his shot attempts came from, was, second chance points, which is great. You want to see that to a degree, but you also want to see him involved just in the initial actions more. And, I would have loved to have seen it. It was a little worrisome seeing him get stood up by Dillon Brooks a number of times. And I know that Dillon Brooks is like annoying, but he's like 6'6" with a negative wingspan. And I'm not making that up. I think he's 6'6" with a 6'5" wingspan. Like he cannot challenge a Cat when, Cat wants to get a shot up over him. So it's basically then just, can you do enough to create the space you need? And you barely need to do anything. If you wanted to get his hook shots or whatever, focus on getting him the ball deeper then, get him the ball deeper in position so he doesn't have to back him down for 5 minutes. And then, let him get some easy shots that way, because they seemed committed to that matchup early. And I didn't think the Knicks did a good job exploiting it. So there's just a lot of little things, I think there's a lot of things that they could have done better and made this made this game, closer early, which would have then made it closer later, hopefully, and then maybe given them a better chance to win. But instead, it, kind of they had to claw and claw and claw, and they got back within 3 points, and then the wheels just kind of fell off down the stretch, and they wound up losing by, what was it, 11? 12. Wound up losing by 12. So, I think this game was in the end a little closer than the final score indicated, but still not a great showing. But maybe we could take things positive for a minute before we go back to negative. Talk about OG Anunoby's night. I thought that he had probably his best game of the season. So kind of overshadowed by the fact that the whole team was not having their best game. But let's talk about that in just a moment.
But first, we want to tell you about some of our newest friends here over at Locked On Knicks over at Build. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Alex is someone who has exclusively been a renter in my life. This is music to my ears. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent now when you go to join built.com/LockedOnNBA. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points with your rent payments today.
And today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. And let me tell you about a great new feature called Game Time Picks. That's where Game Time makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. They filter out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I am personally, so I'm going to visit some friends in Dallas over Thanksgiving. So I am going to see Knicks Mavericks in Dallas, I think, which should be a lot of fun. And I'm on Game Time right now trying to find a great deal because much like Knicks tickets, the face value tickets are pretty expensive. I could get one of those, but I'm kind of like, let me wait until a better deal pops up on Game Time at this point. It seems to happen pretty often. And what's great is that you can get all-in pricing through Game Time. So if you toggle the all-in pricing feature, then you could just see your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. That's the only way I shop anymore because, why would you want to get tricked into thinking a price is lower? So Game Time puts it all on the table for you, lets you see your all-in pricing so that you know exactly what you're going to pay when you hit checkout on a seat. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep talking through this Knicks game. But before we get back to the game, it is voting day. I figure we should just tell everybody real quick, make sure to get out and vote. You might not think your vote counts, but I think we've seen a lot of races in this election in various states and whatever. Probably most of our listeners are New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, but which generally presidential wise seem pretty solid and settled. But vote for your House representatives, vote for your Senate representatives, vote for everything down the ticket, right down to like your township board and whatever. Like these are things that matter. Like, and there's some big elections in the city right now in New York, which, I don't live in New York, but I'm out in New Jersey and there's some big ones out here too. So go and, vote down the ticket, make your voice heard. You can never, you can't complain about the government and about, things that happen in this country and whatever, unless you go out and vote. So make sure you go out and vote. Then you get the right to complain at work and whatever. It's great. Anyway, the one thing not to complain about, we're doing a lot of, this game will prompt a lot of complaining, but one guy you can't really complain about is OG Anunoby in this game. 21 points, 7 of 14 from the field, 5 of 6 from 3-point range, and had 6 boards, 2 assists, a steal, 2 blocks. The 2 blocks stood out to me a lot in this game, Gavin. Like, from a defensive perspective, I felt like this was one of the first games this year where we've really seen that help defense block machine OG Anunoby come out, where, I thought that he did a great job of reading what was happening. Cat kind of got, I don't want to say beat, but like, was in a position where, hey, he's in foul trouble. Like he's just standing there with his hands up. He's trying not to get another foul. And then OG would just come in out of nowhere and get a quick swipe block on a shot attempt, and did that twice. I thought that stood out a lot to me. Also, just the shot making, the 3-point shots were falling, which has not been a constant, at least, through the first few games of the season. So it's good to see OG see some go through the net and see the confidence that gave him. But even just like putting the ball on the floor, getting inside, like, he didn't finish a ton of stuff around the hoop, but had one really, really nice look where it was almost too dangerous. It was like a millimeter away from disaster, but had a really nice look that stood out to me, where he was in the corner, pump faked the three, drove inside, and then just made this like absolute like thread the needle pass to Jalen Brunson that I think got even tipped by Şengün. So it was
Oh
like,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
real close, and yet made its way all the way to Brunson for a 3-pointer that he made. I thought that was really good too. Just all in all, a really good game for OG. I think this was, for all the faults of the whole team in this game, I thought this was probably, without a doubt, his best game of the season so far.
Yeah, if I can somehow flip a positive into a negative, my interpretation of this great game was like just thinking back to last season and the fact that the Knicks in the regular season were essentially unbeatable every time OG Anunoby was on the court. Like not even like you didn't even have to put in the qualifier. Like, oh, he had a great shooting game. Like, oh, when he hit at least 40% of his threes, the Knicks were 23-1. No, they were like whatever it was, 20-3, just when he was on the court. And he's now had 2 of his best games this year in games they lost. And that's something I'm looking at going forward. Like, is that not enough for some reason? Like, we know the infrastructure around him isn't the same. So I'm not even going to say that. But to me, that's a little concerning that he played, I think, about as well as he could play. 40 minutes of, to your point, like brilliant two-way basketball. And the Knicks still, I mean, they lost by 12 at the end. It was a 3-point game in the final, 2 minutes, 90 seconds or so. So who knows? They could have pulled it out on a different night against a good team. But that was my negative interpretation. The positive, to your point, was OG was exceptional as someone who was like maybe the one Knick who's not like consistently been exemplary from 3 this year on a team that's shooting lights out generally. Like the shot was just automatic to the point that they designed a baseline out of bounds play for him to get a 3, which I'm sure it's happened before. I don't personally remember them doing that recently. So that was sick. That was cool to see. He had to play defensively. You mentioned the blocks. He had one where he like stood up Steven Adams in the post. And if you listen to NBA guys, like Steven Adams has like Hulk strength. Like he is probably like 10% stronger than anyone else in the NBA. And OG maybe proved that wrong because he just kind of walled up, took him into his chest. And Steven Adams was like, I'm not going to do a New Zealand accent this morning. He was like, "Oh, Nate, you're strong too," something like that. But I thought that was really cool. And look, he was the reason they weren't down by 25 in the first half. Like pretty much, Mikal had a few tough shots. Jalen had his moments. Hart had his moments. Cat had his moments. But he was like the one Knick who really brought it in this game and almost single-handedly kept them in. I'm with you. The passing was great. The finishing was good. And like his most frustrating moment was like late in the game, he got switched onto Şengün and he like very obviously shielded him towards the left side so Cat could come over and help. And Cat, maybe because of the foul trouble, like literally never showed up and they were just sort of staring at each other. And that's one of those things that's actually fixable and will get better over time. But I could see where OG was really frustrated because he was working his tail off and did not get a lot of help on either end. I want to circle back to Jalen Brunson because again, that was like I think publicly the main concern I saw from people coming out of this game. Jalen is never going to be my biggest concern on this team, but I went back and like went through the possessions down the stretch, and I thought it was like pretty cleanly like 50-50 in terms of like if he made the right decision or not. Like and this started with just about 6.5 minutes left in the game. He had one play where he tried to shoot over both Reed Shepherd and Alperen Şengün. And I thought that was actually like probably the single worst decision he made out of all of them. Like it was just a terrible shot attempt. And if he had sprayed it, like he had Mikal Bridges open in the opposite corner. He had Josh Hart wide open on the wing, and the Bridges pass would have been tough. The Hart pass was there. And it's weird where like he almost exclusively passes to Hart at times, but it's very clear he does not have confidence in Hart's 3-point shot, because so many times this year he's forced up a tough shot over a double team instead of just making that pass to Josh Hart. And I think Josh Hart was trying to say this as softly as possible after the game, when he was like saying, like, sometimes we get a mismatch off a switch and we think we have to go at it instead of just like making the right play. And the right play is to kick it out to Josh Hart, keep the machine moving, and trust the pass that you're eventually going to get a better shot. He had a miracle double pump banker in transition that went in. That was sick. Maybe not a great shot, but it went in. Had another one where he made the extra pass to Bridges off a driving kick, where he kicked it out to Hart, got it back from Hart, then got it to Bridges. Again, that's the power of trusting Josh Hart, trusting you let the ball back, and trusting that the right play will happen. That's how it should look. I think you were referencing this play earlier, like forced a really tough isolation fadeaway on Amen Thompson. That's just not a good shot. Thompson's too big, too long, too athletic. He hit Hart like brilliantly when they used them in that pick and roll to bring Şengün up. I think it was Tari Eason, or maybe it was Amen Thompson, but they trapped the ball, and before they could trap Jalen, he just like fired like a lefty one-handed pass right through the gap of the double team. That was awesome. I had missed the 3 late off a Hart, like toss back and screen. I thought it was a fine shot. I just thought he rushed it a little bit, like was doing a little lefty leg kick to try to will it in. Maybe that was Amen closing really well, but again, fine shot. And then took like a really quick layup late, which was not a good shot, but they were down by 8 with 37 seconds left. So I don't know what you want him to do. Again, it wasn't a great night for Jalen Brunson. The process could have been better, but I think the idea that he somehow single-handedly lost in this game down the stretch, I think it's more of an issue with their offensive philosophy and infrastructure. I put it on Tibbs and their personnel a little bit more than I put it on Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it just comes down to, Brunson. I don't know if he's expected to, have the telekinetic ability to like move players around and set up plays himself. Like it's at a certain point, it's like you have to be prepared for situations, and I just think the Knicks weren't prepared in this situation. I mean, it's going to come across as fan colored glasses, or whatever, but I just think I think that they're just working through some stuff. Like they haven't figured out what their identity is just yet. We see glimpses of it, like a 44-point cat game, or like a game where they've had what, like, did the streak didn't get broken against Detroit, right? Like they still have had like 6 straight games where all the starters were in double figures. Like
they had 4 straight. Yeah.
4 straight.
Yeah, that was the most since 1989, to your point. Which is pretty amazing. Yeah.
So I mean, they're still getting all the starters involved in some way. It's got to be better, and particularly late game execution against.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. To your point, it's 5 now because they did.
Right. Now it's 5. So yeah, I mean, they're still getting guys involved. They just need to get them a little more involved. I think that they just need to have more plays in their back pocket. And I feel like in this game, because of the switching and the doubling and everything else, they just didn't have the playbook for that yet, and I think those are things that they'll work on over time. I think Brunson will start, knowing where some of these guys' spots are going to be long term over time, but they're just not quite there yet. But I'm kind of with you. I don't think that he like single-handedly lost them the game or anything. Like I know that the overall shooting number is not great, and I wish he would have, instead of taking it inside, I wish he would have looked for like a step back 3 a few more times, because that's such an effective shot for him. And I feel like he didn't look for it enough in this game. Like he shot 50% from 3 and 38% from the floor in this game. So like do the math. Like he shot significantly worse on 2-point shots then. Did get to the free throw line 9 times, made all 9 of those. So I guess I can understand like trying to generate free throws, but this was, like I referenced earlier, just such a weirdly called game that I don't think that they really had the ability to bank on anything as it pertained to drawing fouls, because it was like one possession down the floor you could get absolutely mugged, and the next one you could get touched with one finger and get a foul called. So it just didn't, there was no consistency to how the game was being called. I think down the stretch they just needed to look more to generate threes, and like this is another game that, like, not for nothing, like on the overall they only shot 28 threes in this game, and they shot 40% on threes, so it's like, why were you not looking to get more of those? And I know a lot of that damage was done by OG hitting 5 of 6, but like Brunson was 2 of 4, Bridges was 3 of 8, and to your point, like looked kind of invisible down the stretch. Like, why are you not trying to generate more threes for him? It didn't help that one of your most consistent guys had his first bad game of the season in Deuce McBride and had 0 points on 9 shot attempts, which is a lot to deal with when that's a guy that you've been banking on like 10 to 12 points a game for, and that probably in many ways swung the game. But like, I just think you have to get more creative, which, I'm sure that they will. But let's talk about Deuce in a second. Some of the struggles there. We can talk about Tyler Kolek, who got like his first significant minutes of the season, and just kind of do some final housekeeping in just a moment.
But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats if you like play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150. I have to say that loudly because it's an incredible offer in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
And we want to tell you about our friends over at HIMS. And guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we all want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. HIMS provides access to treatments that help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. That's a lot of money saved. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. You just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. Here's the fun part. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. All right, Gavin, we're back to finish talking about this game. Hopefully not for too much longer. If I'm being honest, I'm kind of over it already. Because this is one of those games that we'll hopefully just forget all about in like a week's time or something. But Deuce McBride, I thought, had a tough game in this one. And I'm kind of curious your thoughts. Did it come down to anything more than just the shots not going in? Because I thought that he was in many ways getting a lot of the same opportunities he normally gets. Like the shots, I feel like the threes were pretty open. I don't think that he really forced too much. Sometimes the defense was tilting towards him, but that's going to happen. And he's been a good, tough shot shooter this year so far. So I didn't really have any problems with it, but everything was just a little off. The thing that I guess I took the most exception to was he missed some just back-breaking bunnies at different points in this game. Like there was one point, I want to say it was when they were down 3 or maybe when they were still down like 5, but it was in one of those tight moments of the game where you were thinking like, okay, another bucket here might really swing things. And he got inside and got a pretty open layup. I mean, it wasn't, it's not like there was nobody within 5 feet of him, but it was a shot that he normally makes. And it just like really missed it right off it was like he's going up for like a lefty layup, if I remember correctly, and just short armed it so much that it like came off the left part of the rim. And like, then nobody could even get like a good read on it for a rebound. And Houston ended up with it. And it was not great. I think that he just had an off night. And, maybe if he wasn't having an off night, that kind of swings this game for the Knicks. Like Tibbs might have felt a little more comfortable giving him more than he had 26 minutes. Like, maybe that allows like a Josh Hart a few extra minutes off the court, Jalen Brunson a couple minutes off the court to, not just get a rest, but, look at the instant frames from what's happening, like sort of like quarterback style, and see like, what they can attack and all that. I felt like in some ways, like Jalen playing 42 minutes in this game was detrimental in the sense that like he never got a chance to just go talk to the coaches and be like, hey, what are you seeing? Like, what can we exploit better here? which are valuable moments that happen on the bench for players in a game. And I think that Deuce's shooting just kind of made it so they couldn't keep him on the floor as much in this game. But I don't know. Did it come down to anything for you more than just the shots not going in, or is this just an off night for Deuce?
Yeah, Alex, as you were talking, I was looking at my notes and I wrote down verbatim, wasn't forcing tough shots, missed a lot of clean looks. So I don't think it was anything more than that. I haven't felt his finishing has always been great this year. It feels like there is still, like, for as much as he's just dramatically improved in so many different areas, there's still a need to diversify his layup package. Because as a small guard, you just need to be extremely creative around the rim and, like, honestly, like a little Jalen Brunson-esque, especially because Deuce is just, like, he's small and he's quick, but and he can occasionally dunk on people, but, like, he's not like an all-world Ja Morant-esque vertical athlete. That being said, I just pulled up the numbers and he's shooting 71% at the rim, which is the 67th percentile for guards. So you know what? At the end of the day, what do I know? It was an off night. Like he had the layup you were talking about, which I think was in transition. He had like a 5-foot floater that always seems to go in for him. He was getting open threes. Some nights this happens. I think the bigger problem here is just that the Knicks don't really have any alternatives, right? Like they are so reliant on him playing well against good teams. Like obviously Brunson struggled a little bit, but you look at the other shooting, like Bridges, obviously, and we'll talk, maybe this will be the thing we talk about next. Like you want more from him, right? Like he only took 14 shots in this game. Cat only took 17 shots in this game and only took 2 threes. Like you want more from both those guys. Bridges only took 1 free throw. That's been an ongoing issue that is kind of concerning to me. So hopefully your starters can score more. But it also hurts you when you literally have no bench, and we are, 6 games into the season, and you have one guy off the bench who plays over 20 minutes. And the other 2 guys who play are Jericho Sims, who does not take a shot and had one nice defensive possession. Again, I don't think he brings you a whole lot. And you have Tyler Kolek, who played one stretch. I actually thought looked pretty good in that one stretch, hit a 3, brought some nice pace to them in transition, and then never gets to play again. And you're like, all right, at what point? I know Pacom.EA, like I've at least between the two of us, I've led the train on this. Like, I don't think he's ready to play against good teams. I would have thrown him out there last night because you're desperate and you have no Shamet, Matt Ryan, who we're probably not going to talk about, but they signed Matt Ryan. Like, he's not here yet. Mitchell Robinson hurt. Precious Achiuwa hurt. Like, give Pacom a chance. Like, he's big and can shoot it. Like, that is more than the non-existent guys that you're playing versus 42 minutes for Brunson, 40 for Anunoby, 40 for Bridges, 38 for Hart. Like, that is not ideal in a regular season game, 6 games into the year. And they just desperately need the shot creation. Like someone like Alec Burks, I think would have made all the difference in the world in a game like this.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And, I think I also, if I was going to pick a nit with the rotation in this game, I think it would be like, I feel so bad. I feel like I always bring him up, but I think it's kind of time to like shelve Jericho Sims and just try Ariel Hook-Porty more. Like, I think Hook-Porty would have been a way better fit for what the Knicks needed in this game, which was more rim protection, like more rebounding. Like Sims, it stands out to me, but like there's just something, he's got all the athleticism in the world, and yet he needs to, like, because of his lack of size, because he's like 6'9" and he relies more on the athleticism. Like, there was at least one point in this game where like he just timed his jump wrong and it lost the Knicks a rebound because he had good positioning, but he needed to get up in the air to get it and timed it just so slightly wrong, which seems to be a common theme with him. And it cost the Knicks a rebound and a potential possession at one point in this game. And I don't remember offhand if that ended up costing them, like if that was like a 4-point swing or something by virtue of Houston like taking advantage of that. But those moments happen. And like, I think Hook-Porty, he's not perfectly ready either. And he's had his lapses and whatever, but at least, like, if you're okay with Sims, as your third center going throughout the season or whatever, you could be comfortable then knowing that, okay, well, if we put Hook-Porty out there and he's having rookie moments, then you can have Sims to, throw out there and just give you slightly below average NBA center minutes. But, I think the Hook-Porty, like the Knicks needed that extra rebounding when Cat was out. They needed the extra rim protection, which I think that he could have given more so than Sims in this game. I just think that he would have been the guy to play, especially after you just expressed some faith in the kid and gave him a full NBA contract, which we haven't talked about, but like they just converted his deal from a 2-way deal into a real deal. So why not give him a little bit of a little bit of confidence there and throw him out in this game and give him a shot. But yeah, I would have probably tried Dottier or someone too. Like, at a certain point, you kind of just got to throw some things at the wall and see what sticks. But it does stink that, like, in these early stages of the season, the Knicks are not getting to experiment with the full deck of cards here. Just thanks to all these injuries and everything. Even just having campaign out for this game, was devastating to the depth, as we saw. Like, they just, Tibbs didn't feel comfortable playing Kolek very much, even though I'm with you. I thought that he looked fine. Like, I was prepared for him to potentially look like he has in the first number of games this season, which, to be honest, I was watching him being like, oh man, maybe you're not quite as ready as we thought. But, in this game, when called upon to come in some fairly high leverage minutes, like, I thought he did well for himself. I think that, he played relatively mistake-free basketball, made a nice spot up three, was relocating himself well when he didn't have the ball. So, like, very like Jalen Brunson things there, which it's not the first time that we've kind of said, like, clearly the Knicks have a type that's like a point guard that can both do things with the ball in their hands, but also is not completely inept without the ball in their hands, and, knows how to find spots and whatever. I thought he did pretty well for himself in that regard. So yeah, I don't know. I wish that more players had gotten a stab at this one, but I think it's very quintessentially Tibbs that he saw this he saw this game as must win, in the sense of like, oh, if we lose, we're back to 500, whatever. Like, oh, this game is within striking distance, so I'm going to just play the starters the entire game, basically, because, we want to win this game. I sort of get it, but I also, I still think this is so early in the season. You have to leave a little more room for experimentation, especially in a game where, even though they were keeping it tight for parts, like, things largely weren't working, and you were getting a lot of your points by getting, like, bailed out by the fact that Cat had a great offensive rebounding game, and that OG had, like, sort of an somewhat outlier offensive game for him. Like, I think that they needed to work a little harder to try some new things in this game, even if it ultimately meant, like, hey, we're having an off night, we're going to lose by 15, whatever. At least try some stuff and set groundwork for things to try in future games. I do think they're going to need to prioritize that a little more, especially once they do get the full deck of cards back, or at least, like, everyone back but Mitch, which seems like hopefully in the next couple weeks, maybe we might get Precious Achiuwa back, and then Cameron Payne should be back from whatever's ailing him. And, hopefully you can start putting together a rotation that looks a little more like what you're going to see the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think there's this fascinating balance there where the lineup they closed with, like, is the one they're going to be playing down the stretch of playoff games, and it's so important to get that lineup a ton of minutes. And to be fair, I didn't get a chance to check this morning, so I'm sure it went down a little bit. But that lineup through the first 5 games has been incredible for the Knicks. Out of the 19 lineups in the NBA that have played at least 50 minutes so far, they have been the second best lineup in the league in terms of net rating, right? They're plus 20, which is somewhat similar to the numbers they were putting up with OG, like, early last season with that Hartenstein, Randall, OG, Brunson, DiVincenzo group. Maybe not quite that good, but they are a really good lineup considering they haven't played a lot together. So whatever you want to say about that, that's sort of the future of the team. I do think, given the fact that they don't have, like, the firepower I think we thought coming into the year, and they're not able to, like, overwhelm, like, the best teams and the switchiest teams, offensively, something they can do in the meantime when they get Precious back, and certainly when they get Mitch back, is, like, lean into their old identity. Like, I want to see some minutes of Cat and Mitch. I definitely want to see some Cat and Precious when they come back, because I think you can just play the way you played the last few years, which is like, hey, like, if we're going to roll the ball out and Tom Thibodeau says, like, we're going to ISO the heck out of teams, then go kill teams on the offensive boards. And we saw Cat could do that. But could you imagine if it was Cat and Mitchell Robinson? Like, what teams outside of, like, maybe the Cavs, and, like, given past evidence of how they deal with Mitch, I would say maybe not even the Cavs. Like who is equipped to deal with that? Like, I don't mind Jalen just, like, creating against the crowd if you have those two under the rim trying to get offensive rebounds, or at the very least Mitch under the rim and Cat maybe crashing from the perimeter, or Hart crashing from the perimeter, and you can lean into that old infrastructure where you're going to have a great offense. And we talked about this when they first made the Cat trade. You'll have the template there of a great defense, because the rim protection, again, in this game, part of it was that Cat was in foul trouble. We didn't say this. Like, it was abysmal. Like, Şengün was, like, going at Cat over and over again. It was so frustrating to watch, because he was getting jump hook after jump hook after jump hook. And, like, Cat at times played, like, his defense went from, like, pretty bad to like just fine. Like there were times where he walled up and he did his job, but he's just like not big enough to affect that. Mitchell Robinson can affect that. Precious Achiuwa, even though he's smaller, can some extent affect that because he's just a better defender than Karl Anthony Towns. So I hope they go big because until they figure out the small ball group and figure out how to maximize Mikal and figure out how to maximize Cat, I think that will give you some stability because Tom Thibodeau knows how to play that way. Jalen Brunson knows how to play that way. And Towns is like, I know it's not the same spacing you have right now, but he is such a better shooter than Julius Randle. It is inherently like spacier and more flexible than what you had in the past. I'll finish on this. Like there's just more they have to do to get Cat going and get Mikal going. I said it earlier. I'll say it again. Like Cat cannot shoot 2 threes in a game. It is completely and utterly unacceptable, especially when he's on the court for more than 30 minutes. Like if they're going to switch, like set screens for him, run pick and rolls with someone other than Jalen Brunson and see if that can free him up because they're not used to the coverages as much. Like let him shoot over guys. Like if they're going to switch Dylan Brooks onto him, Cat can shoot threes over Dylan Brooks all day. And I get using him in the post because he is pretty efficient there. He's a really good post-up guy, but he is not like a super quick decision maker in the post, right? It's not like I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Like honestly, like Julius isn't a good quick decision maker, but he was a genius passing out of double teams in the post. Cat is good at that. Like he is sometimes a little slow. He sometimes gets frustrated and commits a stupid offensive foul. Like you have to mix it up with him and let him pop sometimes and let him just bomb threes over guys. Like I think that's something that will get more consistent over time, but it can't be light on, light off. Like Cat has to be firing away every single night. And Mikal, Alex, like the most concerning stat with him to me right now is that, and I think maybe some of it is that he's a little scared to go to the foul line because like whatever his shot form is, like it's affecting him on his free throws more than anywhere else. Seemingly like he's only shooting 50% at the line. The other thing I'm really looking at, every single year of his career, he's been above average at drawing fouls. More than 8% of his shot attempts have resulted in fouls every single year. And that run on the Nets where he was like killing it the second half of 22-23, 14% of his shot attempts led to fouls. Last season it was 9%. This year, it is 4.7%. He has to get to the line. He has to be aggressive. And the Knicks have to give him on-ball reps at the end of games. I know it didn't always look great in Brooklyn, but he has experience doing it. He's good enough at it. Someone other than Jalen Brunson has to have the ball. I want to see what it looks like with Mikal. They've ignored him in the fourth quarters of close games. That can't keep happening.
Yep, I'm with you. And I don't really have anything else to add because we've gone on for too long in this game already. So thank you all for listening. And we will talk to you all soon. Also, just a reminder one more time that your favorite team podcast does have a newsletter introducing the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. And as I said, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, go vote, go hit the polls, make your voice heard, and all that good stuff. But until next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.